overview about decarbonisation and the future of heat. Obviously, it's a big topic around the exhibition today, and I'm going to touch on a few things really in regards to what's happening in the marketplace. So, obviously, there's a lot of challenges in the heat industry. The government have been publishing a lot of documents. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about the UK housing stock, some practical considerations for hydrogen-ready boilers and heat pumps. So heat pumps are getting a lot of press, and you'll see a lot around the exhibition hall, including ours, just to the right of me. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the technical challenge as well, about hydrogen and conversion, some of the alternative solutions or the lead runners, and then give you a little bit of an overview about the challenges, how what the government are doing and the legislation, and then quite interested to get a little bit of feedback from you guys. So please do put your hand up if you've got any questions throughout the presentation. By all means, do that. Of course, some of the headlines that we've seen in the industry, and I'm guessing majority of people here are in the gas industry, or have made a career out of gas. And I think Britain has to be extremely proud of the fact that we've got arguably one of the biggest gas industries in the world. But our wonderful media have been really sort of talking reasonably negatively about gas, and I guess that's because gas does produce carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is bad for the planet. So we've had some of the headlines saying gas boilers should be banned, and I think the terminology here is probably a little bit confusing to the consumer. What really is led on this is the Future Home Standard and new build. So new build requirements for heating aren't allowed gas boilers from the year 2025. However, existing homes is perfectly fine at the moment, but there is further progression in regards to what are we going to do as an alternative to natural gas that does obviously produce carbon dioxide, which is bad for the planet. So I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of where the situation in the UK is. You can see the graph here on the left that the majority of our properties in the UK EPC band rated D, and of course certainly in the public sector, social housing or private sector, that can't be allowed from the year 2035. So all private rented properties need to be above band C by the year 2035. Of course, there's many challenges to get it up to band C, and so we've done some analysis, and actually one of the options could be using a heat pump. Another option could be using a hybrid heat pump, so using your existing gas boiler. But you can see in the UK that we've got a very diverse housing stock. You can see here that 20% of our stock is pre-1919, so extremely old housing stock, which is very unusual compared to our European neighbours. So moving forward, we've been the phrase "there isn't one single silver bullet" it will definitely be repeated throughout this exhibition, and we as a business are taking a technology neutral approach about different options for the right type of property. Whether you're in a pre-1990 fairly well built new build, different technologies will apply. And I think probably in the past we've been we've taken for granted gas, because 85% of our homes in the UK are heated by gas. But moving forward, these sort of types of technology will be the technologies that will help us decarbonise and hopefully be more efficient as well, because there's a big debate about obviously the emissions that we produce and how much we pay for the fuel that we use to heat our homes. But I also wanted to pay attention to, it's not just the technology, but also how well that organisation manufactures those products or those units, for how much carbon is produced into the environment. So we might talk about tailpipe emissions from the emissions of a car vehicle, but we might also think about how many emissions that vehicle manufacturer makes by producing those. So Bosch is very proud to announce that we became carbon neutral by the end of year 2020. So it's not just about how efficient the appliance is, but also having a look at about how efficient the business is that manufactures that product. So looking at the practical considerations of the heating industry, In the UK, we love boilers. Obviously, the boiler manufacturers, we're a manufacturer as well. We've become very used to having a small appliance, and it's virtually, 17 million combination boilers out there over the last sort of 30 years. We've gone to a combination boiler model as opposed to a system boiler model. But the front runner really for decarbonisation is a heat pump, and I just want to look at the considerations really there, what consumers and installers and the supply chain need to make to retrofit an installation from a gas boiler to a heat pump. And these are some of the considerations. Obviously, it's been government funding for insulation. We do need to insulate the homes a lot better because we can then use a lot less energy. There's a new indoor appliance needed, as you can see on the left there, new outdoor unit. And there's some considerations on location where you're putting that. So some noise factor. We've worked extremely hard in getting our unit very low in terms of the decibel noise. And that's why it might appear quite bigger than maybe some of our competitors because of the noise factor and also because of the efficiency factor. But there also possibly will be new heat emitters. Heat pumps are designed to run on 55-degree temperature flow or low temperature underfloor heating, for example. So there may be some considerations to be made on oversizing radiators. And the big thing really is new adaptive behaviour. We're very lucky that we can maybe switch on our boilers for half an hour, an hour. Some in fuel poverty might put it on for an hour to get some heat in the morning and some heat in the evening, and that's all they can afford is to have their boilers on for that period of time. Now, of course, heat pumps don't work that way. They need to be on for a consistent period of time and to work up to that temperature, as opposed to obviously the gas appliances that is like for like appliance as well. Just stuck here. So just want to move on to the energy requirements, which should just click on. And this is really the main challenges of where we are with electricity in red and gas in blue. In the UK, our climate is very unique. It's very different to other countries within Europe, very seasonal orientated. In green is the renewables demand. So through the season, we're extremely reliant on gas. So we've got to question whether the electrical infrastructure can really cope with electrifying heat in our homes for the UK. I've just recently got an electric car, but arguably, would I use it more in the winter than the summer? Probably not. It's consistent throughout the year. But with our boilers and heating, obviously that is directly linked with usage and energy usage, and that's something that we've got to be extremely careful about. So looking at the options for heat pumps, obviously you can see the items there that are needed. Need an outdoor unit, an internal unit, and possibly a buffer. You need another cylinder, so you need another allocation for a cylinder, and a new controller as well in terms of how you control that. In regards to hybrids, you can use that on existing gas boilers. So you can retrofit a heat pump and use an existing gas combi boiler. So the heat pump would take the load for the heating, and the hot water would still be using gas through the combination boiler for hot water output. So those are the solutions really for hybrids and heat pumps and considerations on those. What I also wanted to pay attention is certainly the CEO of National Grid has basically said that we're not going to get to zero carbon without hydrogen, and we're still very reliant on gas. So gas, this is the latest statistics from the UK Energy and Brief from BEIS, our government department. So we're still reliant on over a third of our electricity generation for gas. And that's been reducing over the last sort of 5 years. We've decommissioned the coal plant, but we're still extremely reliant on gas for electricity generation. So even if I do have a heat pump, I'm still reliant on gas in terms of that generation. Obviously we're looking to reduce that as well. And that's our energy mix within the UK. We're down to 16% of electricity generated from nuclear energy. We're doing pretty well on wind and solar, so the UK's got a pretty good mix on that. But I just wanted to compare to other countries throughout Europe. and looking at the space heating requirement for other countries. You can see there, this is the overall electric space heating percentage of other European markets. So, you know, countries like France, for example, use a lot more on electric for heating. Scandinavia has a very big heat pump market. So my colleagues in Scandinavia, oil and gas is very expensive. So, you know, electricity and hydro energy through Scandinavian countries is used widely. But you can see here an example really of France. France, 70% of their electricity generated is from nuclear. And what's interestingly, that's a big link to the market, because last year France had about 270,000 heat pumps installed. In the UK we had 60,000. So it's a clear link really in regards to the energy policy and what type of energy is at a lower cost. And obviously France have invested a massive amount, billions amount of money in nuclear, but they're coming towards the end of their life in their nuclear fleet, so they've got to invest billions in this as well. So every country is, you know, really got to focus on this. But it just goes to show really, you know, other countries and how unique the UK is compared to other European countries. And this is extremely interesting. When I looked at some of the infrastructure, a bit like, you know, very proud of our, even though today we've got a train strike, you know, the UK does have an amazing train infrastructure, a bit like our gas infrastructure. No other country in the world, I'd challenge any other country in the world for its size to have 280,000 kilometres of pipework. 1.7 million gas boilers that are installed. It's a huge market in the UK, and we're almost about 3/4 of the way through replacing all the gas infrastructure to be hydrogen ready. So why not just crack on and keep going with that? And you can see the polyethylene pipes there that you might have seen locally, you know, through your local village or towns that have been installed to become hydrogen ready. And incidentally, there is a value obviously to the assets of our great gas infrastructure in the UK. Any guesses in terms of the value of, it's in the billions, of our whole gas infrastructure in the UK from all that? Any guesses? Can anyone shout out? How many? 2 billion? Any other guesses on that? Anyone else? Throw a figure out, I don't mind. 75 billion. Not that quite much. 40 billion. The value of the UK gas infrastructure is 40 billion. So I've got a question really, you know, if we all really want to move over to the other side, or a very quick change of what the government want to do, which is 600,000 heat pumps by the year 2028, what are we going to do with this existing gas infrastructure within the UK that we've been building for arguably the last 200 years? Of course, there is many, you know, initiatives going, the ENA, the Energy Networks Association, and many projects that's happening on the Gas Go Green project, which is the hydrogen side of things. So we as a business, we need to gear up ready now for business ready for the options of the future. And whilst hydrogen hasn't had complete go-ahead from government, we need to certainly recognise some of the initiatives and some of the points that the government are putting in place. And this is from the government's 10-point plan for the Green Industrial Revolution, which we're going to completely improve the economy with. And point 2 is driving the growth of low-carbon hydrogen. So it's certainly on the government's agenda. And you can see here in the target milestones, there's been a lot going on pretty much since 2015, 2016, you know, 6 to 7 years later. But in the future, there's obviously a number of other initiatives in terms of testing. The BEIS, the government department, have seen that they could see blending as early as next year in some clusters throughout the UK. And it will support a large hydrogen village heating trial. There has actually just been an announcement of 2,000 homes in the northeast of England, which will you can only opt in for 100% hydrogen or electricity to heat their home. There is no option to have natural gas in those homes in that area. Of course, there's been a hydrogen strategy, so gearing up that's not just heating in the homes, that's other industries. There's still projects up in Scotland where you've got hydrogen buses in London as well. There is heat neighbourhoods There's also an option for the aviation fuel. And companies like Airbus are looking into to this market as well. In fact, Airbus, I know, have got like a zero-E project about a prototype aeroplane running off hydrogen or a fuel cell technology using hydrogen by the year 2035. So, which isn't that far away. So, it's not just to our business sector. It's all types of fuel that arguably could make our country more energy independent as opposed to importing in, especially obviously with the current times, looking at the pressures from the situation in Russia and Ukraine. And looking at the projects, there's been a lot of projects in regards to the gas infrastructure. I don't know if you spoke to in the plaza there. Dave Tonkin from NGN, Northern Gas Network, spoke about the infrastructure project, the Leeds City Gate project. There's also the High Deploy project, the blending that has been done at Gateshead as well, with a 20% blending that's been working with existing homes for a project of 688 homes. There's a High for Heat project. We were fortunate enough to gain some money from the government on funding for the feasibility to design a hydrogen-ready boiler, a boiler that could run on 100% hydrogen, and that's been working away as well with that, and involved in the Work Package 4 and Work Package 5 as well. And interestingly enough, anyone from the northwest in the region, there's a big project called the HyNet project at Ellesmere Port, and they're really sort of driving that. A lot of it is in the north of England, and the government's levelling up agenda. So they've got a big project for improving the economy and improving skills and creating jobs within the northwest of England, and really sort of moving on with energy independence and locally producing hydrogen as well. Of course, what is a really interesting factor is really a lot what's driving this is the SAP methodology. So if you speak to an architect or an energy SAP assessor or an energy consultant, they will calculate the EPC rating off the SAP methodology. In London, where I'm based, they've already adopted that, so you can't build a new build home in London, well, it's been in place for 2 years now, with a gas boiler. You must have something, an electrically heated product. But what will be interesting is to see what the figure is like, the emissions figure for the blend, with a 20% blend. Maybe it could be lower than the carbon emissions figure of electricity, and that really would transform EPC rating, and also get the hydrogen back on track really as an industry moving forward. But what I would say as well is that we've got to be extremely careful of the cost. Gas at the moment is still very cheap. I pay personally, I'm very lucky, I got locked into an Octopus Energy tariff of 3.2 pence on my gas and 18 pence on my electricity. So, but I know colleagues that have got 8 pence on gas and 28 pence on electricity, and we're in the danger of, okay, electricity can reduce your emissions, but would it put it a higher fuel cost as a result of making that decision? And these are some of the highlights really in terms of the hydrogen blend, where our current appliances will be able to take a 20% blend. But obviously we don't have the option of that. That's dependent on the DNO with the district network operator. And if the whole of the country did that, then it would be the equivalent of reducing carbon emissions by 6 to 7%. And that might not sound much, but actually that's 6 million tonnes of carbon dioxide, less carbon dioxide into the UK. Or, a better analogy really is the equivalent of taking 2.5 million cars off the road. And that's a pretty big statement really, and this is what BEIS have committed to, that they're working with the health and safety executive to make sure it's a really safe, viable option. And looking at the technical challenge, I heard earlier on, people talk about the hydrogen boiler market, and people say, oh, it's boring, because it isn't a lot different. It's not that overwhelming. It's a little bit underwhelming, to be honest, because it's the same footprint, it's the same flue hole, it's the same connections. There's not a lot different, apart from we've designed a lot of the fail-safe things within the appliance. what the great bonus is the fact that not only doesn't it produce on 100% hydrogen carbon dioxide, but it also means it doesn't produce carbon monoxide, which is obviously the biggest gas safety issue within the UK. So in looking at the technical challenge, we reverse engineered our boilers. So we've built a 100% hydrogen ready appliance and then reverse engineered it to work on natural gas and then converted it back the other way. But to do that, obviously we need to make sure that that we control the gas. You know, hydrogen is a more volatile gas, but we've designed in to make sure that it is perfectly safe for that. And there's three components really that you need there. One including the burner, which is this type of gauze appliance that you can't have to manufacture it in-house. Another like a valve, or we're looking at gas valve and making sure that that's controlling the gas, and a software chip as well that's involved in it as well. And so if I can just show you, hopefully this will work. This is with a 23% blend, and you can see when it went 3, 2, 1 go, it sort of reduced down on the burner. And that's the effect of hydrogen, that it wants to sort of get back down the supply chain. It's a volatile gas, but it's a safe gas. We would argue that it's safer than a natural gas appliance. So, you know, forget about people talking about explosive hydrogen. You know, that happened 83 years ago. We've moved on, I think, a little bit since then. I think the industry needs to sort of get behind that as well, and looking at the expertise that you guys in the gas industry have, that we should certainly promote the fact that, you know, we are at the utmost on the safety aspect. You can see here that this is one of our appliances in test site in Spade Adam, an MOD site. I really just wanted to demonstrate really it's got 80 degrees temperature flow there. So hydrogen is a high energy vector. It will produce high heat. I know there is certain high temperature heat pumps as well, but certainly hydrogen does tick the box in regards to where you can keep your existing radiator sizes in your home. Of course, there's another site as well. NGN, we're here as well. Dave Tomkin. There's manufacturers' days available. This is in Gateshead, in the northeast of England. And there's all hydrogen gas appliances in this building. So there's a gas cooker, gas oven, gas fire, and one of our gas boilers. Obviously, the gas cookers has got a little bit of a pop when you put that on, but a bit more of a pop than natural gas. But this will the feasibility study in the northeast of England will iron out a lot of those issues in the next number of years. So really, just going back to where we were in 2020 or 2021, you can see here that the heating technology is, we're very spoiled with gas, and that's what you guys have made a career out of. But moving forward towards 2040 and 2050, we'll start to see the diversification of new technology types. And we think that this is just our opinion, together with the EUA and the HHIC, that we think hydrogen really, we think probably approximately about 50% of the homes in the UK possibly won't be suitable for a heat pump, and this is our own prediction, this is why we're gearing so much up for from hydrogen ready appliances. And you can see here in regards to our mains gas that perhaps we'll have a different technology. We have natural gas, we have some heat networks in the higher city areas. Hybrid technology might come in, and hydrogen. We're looking at off mains gas. And you know, interestingly enough, I found out the figure for oil boilers last year, which is, you know, not good news on the carbon side of things. 115,000 oil boilers sold in the UK last year. So whether that was consumers getting into the panic mode of it or not, or whether they think, you know, there's not going to be so many available in the coming years. Hybrid technology and heat pumps for off mains gas is looking at the front technology, and certainly new build. But the government have been really direct in regards to looking at no gas in new build properties. And then just to mention about heat networks, this is becoming more and more popular, and will certainly in the cities areas where you have district solutions. I know there was a presentation earlier on about it, but the Committee of Climate Change have basically said that that they want 18 to 20% of heating in the UK to be from district heating. At the moment, I think it's about 1 to 2% at the moment. So there's a big a big challenge really to transform these by district heating. And as I said, you know, we are taking a technology agnostic approach. So whether it be from a domestic appliance, a commercial appliance like the one to my left, or cascade, heat pumps in a domestic, heat pumps in a commercial, a hybrid technology or hydrogen technology, we will give as many options as possible to what is going to be best for that particular scenario. And just to summarise really, we've done a report together with NatWest because there's a lot more organisations now and banks getting involved in regards to home improvements. And this is a 49-page report that we've done together with NatWest and Shelter. So it's really focusing on the consumer and not trying to force change, but also looking at the technology type, the fuel type, the building type, the opportunity to educate and the people within that, the consumer behaviour, looking at the infrastructure of energy supply to give you a complete overview of what's going to happen. And of course, you know, you guys are going to have to, you know, qualify, re-qualify, whether that be a hydrogen module on the ACS requirements or a refrigerant course to go on from the heat pumps, and working together to make sure that ultimately we've got all the solutions moving forward. And that is it. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions, please fire away, or I'm going to be around afterwards if you want to ask any personal questions. Okay, thank you very much. And please do have a look around the stand and ask any of my colleagues if you've got any questions on the products. Thank you.